Not paying cash for that new car? Welcome to the auto finance industry, right now on the Leadership Voice. Welcome to the Leadership Voice. I'm your host, Jay Barbuto. Today's show is about leadership in the auto finance industry. Our guests today are Mike Groff, former CEO of Toyota Financial, and Marcelo Brudi, CEO of Hyundai Capital. I also have a leadership lesson and lots more coming your way. But first, let's get started with our quote of the day. Today's quote comes from Henry Ford, founder of Ford Motor Company. The only real mistake is the one from which we learn nothing. Our first guest today is Mike Groff. Mike retired in 2018 from his role as Toyota Financial Services President and CEO. His career included over 40 years of general management experience in the automotive finance, leasing, and insurance business. He was instrumental in the growth of Toyota and its rebranding to Toyota Financial Services. Groff is now providing consulting services through his Harborview Consulting LLC. Under Groff's leadership at Toyota, TFS USA reached $120 billion in assets, employed 3,300 team members, had over 4 million active customer accounts, and was America's largest auto finance company. Mike Groff also served as regional CEO for operations in Canada, Mexico, Puerto Rico, Venezuela, Brazil, and Argentina. Please welcome to the show, Mike Groff.
Hi, Jay. Happy to be here. Proud Cal State Fullerton alumnus, so thrilled to be back on campus.
Well, terrific. Thanks for coming on to share some of your wisdom and insights as a CEO in this industry. We really appreciate it.
Great. Happy to be here.
So let's talk about your background. Tell us about your journey and how it eventually led to your role at Toyota Financial Services.
Well, I started at GMAC, which was then the finance arm of General Motors, and I was with them for 7 years. And I got recruited, and I got a call from a headhunter, and he said Toyota was going to start a finance company, and they were looking for auto finance people, and was I interested? And one thing led to another, and I spent the next 35 years at Toyota.
And in that process, you were able to get promoted. How many times would you guess you got promoted while you were at Toyota?
Well, that's a question I never really thought about, Jay. I don't know, maybe a dozen or better. I'm not exactly sure. So I definitely was really entry level when I started, and so it was a long journey to the top for sure.
Now, when you went to Toyota Financial, at the time in 1983, it was really a startup venture. Could you talk about what the original vision for Toyota Financial was?
Yeah, sure. And it was definitely a startup. I was employee number 7. And so the whole company would go to lunch together every day because there was only 7 of us. But really at the time, Toyota was one of the few manufacturers in the automobile business that did not have a finance company. And so there were competitive pressures. Banks had backed away from the business because of the economic conditions in the 80s, and Toyota said it's time for us to get in. So the idea was to really start to be there just to support dealers selling vehicles, really. That Toyota really didn't want it to be too big, didn't really want to be in the finance business, really just wanted to support the dealers.
You wanted to provide an option.
Right.
But things grew from there.
They did.
Could you talk about how it grew from that starting small vision to becoming the largest auto finance company?
Yeah, I think it's a rather interesting story and journey, really, because I think what Toyota did, and I think a lot of other manufacturers realized, is that their finance company was really more than just another option. It became a marketing arm. Especially with the advent of special interest rate programs when interest rates are high like we see today, leasing programs, et cetera. But also data, having customer data in your book of business and using that to maximize your customer relationships. It changed from what I would consider kind of a defensive strategy to be there just to support the dealers as an option to saying, no, we want to be in the business and we really like those customers to be in our portfolio.
So a financial arm of an auto manufacturer maybe originally started out as a finance option and eventually became an integral part of the whole business model for the company.
Exactly. It really became a pillar of Toyota thinking, where originally it wasn't. It was just sort of an option and a tool for dealers. Later, it became really a pillar of the strategy.
It seems it became a big part of the marketing of vehicles through different programs.
Absolutely. So the financing, leasing, and also we took on insurance, which was an important part of this idea of sort of wrapping arms around the customer to be there not just when they buy the car, but all through the life cycle and getting them ready to buy another one and another one and another one.
Yeah, so it helps with retention as well. As CEO, what would you say was some of the greatest challenges you faced at Toyota Financial?
Well, in my time as CEO, we had a few in particular. Shortly after I became CEO, I became involved with the company's decision to move the headquarters from California to Texas, which involved 4,000 positions all over the country. And a significant change. I had 1,000 people under my watch at headquarters. And so we changed 1,000 people in our company's lives the day we told them we were heading to Texas. And it was a big change, an important one, and really part of a bigger strategic view that Toyota had.
So what did you do to navigate that complicated situation?
Well, I think it was probably the greatest leadership lesson of my career, and I was really happy that my career ended with a big challenge and an opportunity, in my opinion. But all the lessons we learned, whether it's from business school at Cal State Fullerton on through my 40 years, we used. I mean, we really had a very specific communication strategy with our people. We had incentives for them to stay and move through relocation bonuses, et cetera. We also had severance programs and retention bonuses because we still needed them to stay through the transition. But we really set out to say we were going to get through this transition, and our dealer customers and our end customers, we didn't want them to have to be touched by any of the change we made. That was really our goal through the whole thing.
So would you say that in that sense, you were able to be stronger long-term after that move than you might have had you not made that move?
Oh, absolutely. And that really was the heart of the move. A lot of people thought it was moving just because of maybe wanting to leave California, but that really wasn't the case. It was really about unity. That was the word I would always come back to. It was about unifying the sales division of Toyota, the manufacturing, research and development divisions, and the finance company all sort of under one campus umbrella, which is what we did in Texas.
So what are some of the skills that you think are most important for a CEO in this industry to have?
Well, I think first of all, you have to have a big vision. I think leadership is all about having a vision, and people want to know you're heading somewhere, and they're looking for somebody to lead them. And so I think a big vision is important. I certainly think you have to know your craft. You have to be really good at what you do in your business, whether it's this business or not. I think your relationships with people are crucial in this particular business because finance really is a service business. It's all about people. And so developing people and acquiring talent for your organization is huge. So I think networking and building relationships are really critical.
I like that you said that because I think a lot of people would assume that in the lending industry that it's about numbers. But it really does come down to the relationships and the people involved because of the service.
I think so. I mean, the numbers are important for sure. I mean, to make it work, and it has to be cost effective, and you have to have a low cost of funds, and people need to make their payments. You have to have all the components. But I'm not sure that that's what makes a company great. I think what makes a company great is really a belief in a bigger thing, and having relationships with your dealers and with your sales side partners in the business is key.
So a lot of companies are transforming and they're seeing new opportunities that are coming from technology. How do you see technology changing Toyota Financial?
Well, technology is huge, and I think it was probably the most challenging part of my job along the way, certainly during my time as CEO. But the pace of change, it was becoming faster and faster, so no matter what we were working on, it seemed like by the time we got done with it, everything else had already moved on. And so I think providing faster services, particularly for your dealer partners, but also a great customer experience really matters to customers because they they don't just choose which car they're going to buy. They choose the whole experience about their time with that company. And so I think technology is a huge enabler that's just critical for success.
So there's lots of folks in the industry that likely will be watching today's show. And many could be junior executives that might aspire to move into senior executive types of roles in this industry. What advice would you give somebody that wants to really shine in this industry?
Well, I'll tell you what my dad taught me. He taught me, first of all, to be a person of integrity and that your character mattered. And I think people see that in you. I don't think people like phonies, and I think they see through them. So I think you got to be an authentic person. I think you get to be really good at what you do. And I think, your expertise in how you build relationships with all your partners, whether it's your employee partners, the sales partners at the car company, your dealer partners, even partners in the government, because it's a heavily regulated business. So having relationships with people in the business are really important. And I would say the last thing is really respecting that you need all the components of your business to work. So understand the things maybe that aren't in your sweet spot. So if you're a finance person, maybe you need to understand the sales side. If you're a salesperson, maybe you need to understand the treasury side. I mean, you really need to understand the breadth of your business.
So you may not have to become expert in every area, but you need to have at least a strong enough orientation to be able to have good strategic conversations.
Definitely. And my boss, who I replaced as CEO, was really good in my career helping me move into jobs, some that I didn't totally understand why he wanted me to have along the way until after. But they were all about giving me a flavor of something that I didn't have the expertise in, because he thought maybe someday it's going to matter that you're sitting on the other side of the table and you better understand a little bit about it.
Oh, terrific. Mike, I want to thank you for being on the show today. We're going to have you stick around because we're going to have a panel discussion with you and Marcelo in just a little while.
Great. Fantastic.
It's now time for a featured segment of the Leadership Voice. It's today's Did You Know? Today's Did You Know comes from Statista.com. In 2023, a whopping 80% of all new cars were acquired using some form of financing. Of these, 2/3 were traditionally financed and 1/3 were leased. But in the electric vehicle market, over 80% of all new cars sold in the U.S. were leased. It's now time for today's Leadership Countdown. Today's countdown comes from MotorFinanceOnline.com. We bring you the 5 biggest trends transforming the auto finance industry. Number 1, component-based technology. Number 2, digital self-service capabilities. Number 3, embedded financing. Number 4, usage-based leasing. And the number 5 trend, connected cars. Don't go anywhere. We have Marcelo Brudi up next, right after this commercial break. The Bringing Learning to Work program is our way of connecting the faculty of Cal State Fullerton with the business community of Orange County and Southern California. We have over 72 training programs that are available via distance or face-to-face. And the faculty come to your company and they deliver the training to your employees.
The Bringing Learning to Work program is really fundamentally, it's leadership programming. We do diversity and emotional intelligence training. We partner with Cal State Fullerton because they had subject matter experts in these fields. And we're really fortunate and privileged to be able to do that.
Many companies can't afford training and development personnel. And so this is a great opportunity to leverage Cal State's faculty to help them develop their learning programs.
The leadership of the center and the students allow me to not only bring leadership development to my company, but allow me to interact with some amazing students who have grit, potential, and just amazing futures in front of them, and I get to take part of that. It's a wonderful feeling.
When your organization is ready to develop its talent, reach out to the Center for Leadership and we'll help get you there. Welcome back to the Leadership Voice. Our next guest is Marcelo Brudi. Marcelo Brudi is President and CEO at Hyundai Capital America, a $60 billion auto finance company supporting Hyundai, Genesis, and Kia in the U.S. HCA offers financing products to consumer and business customers across the U.S. Under Marcelo's leadership, HCA effectively serves more than 2.5 million customers and more than 1,600 dealers nationwide. Prior to HCA, Marcelo held various leadership roles at RBC Bank, Santander Bank, TD Bank, Visa, and Wells Fargo. Marcelo also serves as the president of the board for the Boys and Girls Clubs of Central Orange Coast. Please welcome good friend and fine leader, Marcelo Brudi.
Hello, Jay.
Marcelo, thanks for being on the show to share your wisdom as CEO.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Maybe we could start by talking a little bit about your background and the journey which has led you to Hyundai Financial.
Yeah, you mentioned some of the companies I work for. So I took some risks in my career, moving through different companies, different locations, different roles, because I wanted to try something different. I knew one way of doing things from one business, but I also wanted to see how other businesses approach the same industry. But that also most likely meant a new company, new leaders, new culture, and a new location, which had also moved around a lot. But it was part of taking risk. I've been most of my career a risk professional, finance professional. I've been a CEO for a little bit over a year now. But those learnings, those risks, and evaluating the risk versus reward is what led me to where I am today.
So if you think about the opportunities you had and the decisions and the choices you made, do you think you'd be where you are today if you weren't willing to take chances?
No. I think, I spent the first 5-6 years of my career as an underwriter. That means you get an application for a mortgage, a commercial loan. You have to look at the information that you have and you have to make a decision. There's no, I want to wait, I don't want to make a decision. So that taught me that you always have to make a decision and you have to be willing to live with that decision. And I applied that to my career. I looked at the information that I had, the choices that I had, evaluate them, and then made a decision and live with that decision. Never look back to regret the decision because it was the best decision that I could make given the information that I had. I learned from those decisions. I learned from different companies that I worked at, mostly banks. I learned from having great bosses, not so good bosses, and I learned from both.
So a lot of your background were with banks and lending institutions. What drew you to the auto finance industry?
I always had a passion for cars. I remember my parents telling me a story. At the age of 4, we were at the beach. They couldn't find me. So they went to the lifeguards. They were looking for me. They finally found me in the parking lot, walking around a car, a sports car, a Lamborghini. And so from a very young age, I loved cars. And I knew I was good at finance. So when Hyundai Capital called, I knew I had the perfect combination, mixing what I'm good at, which is financing, plus my passion, which is cars. And when you work at a finance company, you get to see the entirety of the auto industry, not just the manufacturing, but also the design, the thought, the products, the innovation. And so it's not just about financing, it's about the entire ecosystem of the auto industry. So I was able to mix what I was good at and my passion.
So if a person can find their passion and find opportunities to also use their skills, is that a good recipe?
That's the best recipe in my experience, right? If you can actually find what you're good at and be passionate about it, that is the recipe for success because it doesn't feel like a job. You actually enjoy every day and you want to do better and you want to do more, right? And you're having fun while doing it. And if you're good at it, right, because that's your expertise and you're passionate about it, it's a great combination. In my experience, the most successful CEOs, leaders, is the ones that can combine both of those.
So technology is really changing the automobile industry. It's changing the auto finance industry. How is technology influencing Hyundai Capital?
So we are part of an ecosystem, right? Hyundai Capital supports our dealers, supports our OEMs, the manufacturers. but also part of a larger group. So technology is impacting not just the auto industry, but the entire group. We are Hyundai Capital. We support Hyundai Motor Corporation, Kia Motor Corporation, but the Hyundai Motor Group that also owns not just cars, but hydrogen trucks, what we call eVTOLs, electrical, vertical, and takeoff landing vehicles, flying cars, autonomous vehicles. We also own Boston Dynamics. And so technology plays a very critical role, not just in the Hyundai Capital, how we service our clients, dealers, our OEMs, our internal employees, our agents, the tools that we give them, right? But also the entire ecosystem. When you look at cars today, EV cars, they're connected cars. You can actually make payments in our cars today. You want to go in a parking, you can pay for parking from your car today on a Hyundai in the US. And that's the technology that has been coming into the auto industry. And imagine if a client wants that experience, they want that experience with their car, they also expect to have that experience with their finance company. And so we have to offer them the same type of channels and services, website, mobile app, self-service, chatbot. Most of our decisions are automated. 90% of our decisions are done by a machine, right? And so there's no human behind it, only the most difficult decisions. So technology plays a critical role for the auto industry, but also for the captive finance industry.
And if a company in this industry doesn't embrace the technology and leverage it to its fullest, they're going to be left behind.
They're going to be left behind. They're not going to be cost effective. They're not going to be able to provide good service to their customers. And customers, I define it quite widely, right? We have the consumer who buys a vehicle, but also have the dealers, the 1,700 dealers that you mentioned. They are also my customers. I have the three brands, the OEMs, Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis, who are also my customers. And I have my employee, my agents, who are also my customers. And my customer-centric. My philosophy is to be customer-centric with all four of them. And technology is an enabler, right, to support them and give them what they want. Customers nowadays, they expect to have the Amazon experience on everything they do. Not just with Amazon, but with everything they do. They want one click and they want to get it. And so if you don't give them that with their vehicle, if you don't give them that with their financing solutions, they're not going to be happy. And they're not going to be loyal to the brand.
So as CEO, sure, before you became CEO in this industry, I'm sure you had visions of what it would be like. How does being a CEO compare to what you thought being a CEO was going to be like?
So not a lot of surprises. I think I've been reporting to CEOs for the last decade, so quite close to that most senior role. So I watched them, I saw them. The biggest difference, I think, is now I get to use what I learned through the last 30 years of my career in different roles, in risk, in finance, in sales, in commercial. Now I get to bring it all together and create that vision for the future, right? So where am I taking the company, not just over the next 12 months, which is a given. You have to be successful in the next 12 months to be able to succeed in the next 5 to 7 years. But technology changes so fast, and you have to have that vision. Where do you want to go? I have a 2030 strategy, so 6, 7 years out, right? So where do we want the company to be? And our strategy is to grow, innovate, and diversify. We want to grow the company. We want to innovate. Innovation, technology is an enabler for growth. And then we want to diversify the products that we have, not just auto financing, insurance, but also what we call mobility. Hydrogen truck financing, robots financing, eVTOLs, flying cars, trailer financing, autonomous car financing. So all of the options that a customer will have in the future to decide how they want to move around. My vision is to be the leader in financing freedom of movement. However you decide to get somewhere, if you want an autonomous vehicle, if you want to have a subscription, if you want to fly somewhere, if you want to drive yourself, if you want to drive an ICE vehicle, an internal combustion vehicle, or if you want to drive an EV vehicle. Those are your choices. We want to make sure that we finance all your choices.
So knowing that you picked up so many things when you were working so closely with CEOs, others that might be in those roles, working closely with CEOs, it's an incredible opportunity for them to really start thinking about strategically what type of leader they might want to be.
Yeah, and you have to be humble, but you have to have the passion. You have to be aggressive with your vision. You have to also demonstrate that you can do the day-to-day job. You have to get the results today, tomorrow, this month, this year, but you also have to have the long-term vision. And somebody who reports to a CEO or somebody who is even below those levels, they have to have the ability to demonstrate that they can do their current job, but also have the strategic vision to be able to do more. And where do I want to be in 5, 6, 10 years in my career? And what are the steps that I need to take in order to get there, right? You are going to be your best career advisor. You know your strength, you know your passions. If you can combine those two, find that area, find that niche, and exploit it, right? And then figure out how to navigate, whatever that is. If you're an entrepreneur, if you work in corporate America, how to navigate that journey, always keeping in mind that destination. And be flexible. Things change. There could be another pandemic, there could be another financial crisis. So always be flexible and expect the unexpected. But also don't lose sight of that vision.
So have a clear sense of where you want to go.
Yes.
Have a clear sense of your long-term vision, but also understand that it's never going to go exactly the way you think it's going to, and you have to be ready to be agile.
Yes, agile, flexible, innovate, quick on your feet. And that ability, it's what differentiates sometimes the successful versus the not so successful people.
So if you were to give advice to a junior executive, somebody in your industry that wants to aspire towards a role similar to yours, what advice would you give somebody, an up-and-comer in the industry?
So I think number one is you need to perform well, right? People come to me and says, Marcelo, I want to get promoted. I say the easiest way to get promoted is to excel at what you do, right? And it's not just exceed your own goals, you're competing against your peers. So you need to excel at what you do and be better than your peers. I was a swimmer, very competitive. And so I keep that in mind, right? And I tell people, well, whoever comes in second place is the first loser. That's what my dad taught me, right? A bit too much, but always trying to be the best at what you do and always compete against everybody else. So, exceed expectations, be that number one, and that would actually get your name out there. Then network, right? Be humble about being number one. Nobody likes somebody who's too arrogant. Be proud, market yourself, network, but also be humble at the same time. And have that vision. Where is it that you want to get, right? If you get in your car and you don't put a destination, you might be going left and right, but you never might get there. You might be doing a lot of work, driving a lot, but you never get to your destination. So do the work, have the vision, be humble, market yourself, network, but don't lose sight of where you want to be in the 5-year plan, in the 10-year plan.
That's great. I want to thank you, Marcelo, for being on today's show and joining us for this interview. I'm going to ask you to stick around because we're going to do a panel discussion and bring Mike back on.
My pleasure.
It's now time for our leadership example. Today's example comes from disfold.com. We bring you the top 22 largest U.S. companies in the auto manufacturer industry by market cap. It's now time for today's leadership lesson, where I'll discuss how to negotiate a great deal on your next vehicle purchase. I'm Jay Barbuto, and here's today's leadership lesson. The average person will buy just under 10 vehicles during their lifetime. So, for everyone, today's lesson is about how to negotiate a great deal on a vehicle. To start, you must know what vehicle and trim level you want before you start negotiating. If you test drive a vehicle, do just that. Drive it, but don't negotiate. If you start negotiating right away, you have already lost the leverage battle. You need to learn which make, model, trim level, and features that you want. Always ask for the typical build that the dealer stocks so that you will be able to compare the same MSRP levels across dealerships. Once you know what vehicle you want, now you can go do your homework. Why do some pay $60,000 for a new vehicle while others pay $55,000? It's all about leverage. Leverage is operationalized by what we call BATNA. BATNA, B-A-T-N-A, stands for the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. Each time you negotiate, the better your alternatives are, the more leverage you will feel. If your alternatives are bad, then you will have a low BATNA, and that desperation will make you pay more. You must create alternatives for yourself. Imagine yourself arriving at a dealership with your vehicle on the back of a tow truck, walking in and announcing, "My ride is dead. I need a new one tonight." Obviously, this is not a good recipe for leverage. Your BATNA would be so low that you would be destined to overpay. But if you walked into that very same dealership with 5 competitive offers, your BATNA would be exceedingly high, and you would possess the leverage needed to negotiate well. So the key to doing your homework is to always get competing offers from multiple dealerships. Make dealers bid against each other before you arrive at any dealership. Once you have done your homework and have several offers, you are now ready to negotiate. Go to the dealership, offers in hand, and watch the dealerships give in to your leverage. Your high BATNA will give you the confidence to negotiate a great price. And if you do not like the deal, you can always leave and go to one of the other dealerships to take their best deal instead. Follow these tips and your BATNA will stay high and you will always get the very best deal on your next vehicle purchase. I'm Jay Barbuto, and this has been your leadership lesson. We've brought back our 2 guests for today's leadership panel. Thank you, Mike and Marcelo, for rejoining us so that we can discuss some more things related to our industry.
Great. We're thrilled to be here.
Terrific.
To be here. Yep.
So I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and you'll each have a chance to answer each question. Mike, you're going to be asked the first question, and Marcelo, you'll have a chance to answer that same question. Our first question, how has the auto finance industry evolved through the years? Mike?
Well, I think it's evolved in a number of ways. I mean, first of all, technology has had a huge impact, making your business more efficient, more customer-friendly, faster service, more efficient service. There's a lot more regulation. You're talking about federal regulation, you're talking about state regulation, so keeping everybody happy with making sure you're doing things correctly. And lastly, I think, that the hunt for talent is always in front of us. Having good people, hiring them, and then teaching them, and then retaining them, always a big challenge.
Marcelo, what about you? How has the industry evolved?
I agree. I think when you think about people, process, and technology, it has evolved, right? The expectations from the clients continue to evolve, and you have multiple clients. You have your customers, you have your dealers, you have the OEMs, and you have your employees, and all of their expectations have evolved in terms of their needs, in terms of what they want, right? And so you have to provide that to them, not just internally, but also externally.
So with all of these changes and this evolution of the industry, what does it take to succeed?
Well, I think you have to build a culture that's adaptable to change, and I think that's what happens with businesses, even really good ones. They get stuck in a pattern, maybe a bit complacent. They're good at what they do, they've got things figured out, but then they're not ready to change. And I think that ability to look down the road farther and see what's coming really is important.
I couldn't agree more. Change is constant, and if you don't change, you're going to be left behind. The market, the products, the expectations, they keep evolving, and the expectation is for us as a finance company to keep up with those expectations and market needs. Not just the vehicles that are being produced need to evolve and meet customer expectations. Also us as a finance company, we are a service company. So the products that we do, the service that we offer, how we communicate, the channels, all of that has to evolve. We have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Terrific. So our next question, Marcelo, you'll answer first. What does the future hold for the industry?
I think it's more change, right? It's market continues to grow, expectations continue to go up. Now we are moving to EV vehicles, right? It's 5-10% of the industry. For our brands, we are number 2 in the US after Tesla. If you combine Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis, we're number 2. So that's one way that the industry is evolving. But there's also more than that. Autonomous vehicles, connected vehicles, right? And so the industry will continue to evolve on the auto side. And as a consequence, the finance industry has to support and provide a service to that evolving auto industry. We have to support our owners, our partners. If not, we're not doing what is expected of us.
Well, I think in addition to that, you've got customers that are changing as the world changes too. So finance companies in particular are being asked now to try different types of financing. So you see ride-sharing programs, you see subscription services, and certainly the EV change, which is coming maybe a little slower than people thought, but it's picking up momentum now, and people are starting to think about what does that mean. So for example, are you financing just the car, or are you also financing the charger that they have to put into their home that they never used to have before? So I think, again, that adaptability is really key.
So our next question, and we'll have Mike answer this one first, it has to do with mistakes. So Mike, we're going to ask you to share, what would you, as you think about your career, what's been the biggest mistake you've made, and what did you learn from it?
Well, first of all, I've made hundreds of them, and I think it took me a while to realize that every mistake was a learning opportunity. And fortunately for us at Toyota felt that way. They were big believers that mistakes were opportunities to learn. But I would say for me, I would look at my career. I left General Motors relatively young, but I had my first son born, and we needed more money. And I took a job after GM before Toyota, and really it was because they paid me more. And what my lesson was is don't do things just for money. That fit matters, that finding work that you love doing, working with people that you love working with really ultimately matters. The money will come. If you're good, the money will come. But I think career-wise, it was a really important lesson to me that you've got to find something you feel good about. It can't just be about money.
So if you chase income, you're really taking a short-term strategy.
I think so, because again, I think if you're good people will always get paid. The money will come, the opportunities will come. But if you do think, and that's the primary motive, then I think you make mistakes. And
So
that was a
maybe-
lesson I learned.
So maybe better to focus on professional development, growth.
Absolutely.
All right, terrific. Marcelo.
Similar experience, right? And I would say I never look back and I said I made mistakes. As I think Mike said, I look back to say, what did I learn from the decisions that I made at that point in time? I try to make the best decision given all the information that I have, but I don't try to second guess myself after the fact. I think it's unfair, right? And so, did we succeed at everything that we tried to do? No. Did we learn from it? Yes. Are we trying to do better? Yes. So you make mistakes, but don't be too hard on yourself. Try to learn from them and try to say, did I make the best decision? And if that wasn't the case, then how you can improve your decision-making process for the future. And be aware that even if you have all the right information, you made the right decision, you cannot control everything, the environment. And so you might still fail. And that's okay. You have to get up and do something else and continue to move on.
So keep learning from our mistakes. Treat all mistakes as opportunities to develop wisdom. Let it guide your future, but don't live in your mistakes and don't live in the past.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So it's now time for the final word. This is where each of you will have a chance to give one final pearl of wisdom or piece of advice to our viewers. So Marcelo, you'll go first.
I think I mentioned it before, right? The best combination that I have seen in others, and I also see in myself, if you find something that you're passionate about and you can be good at it as well. It's a perfect combination. I'm lucky that I've been able to find it. Some people get stuck in areas that they say, oh, I have to do this job, but I don't love it. And they're afraid of taking the risk to try to change. And so be competitive, find your passion, try to do the best that you can, and you spend a lot of time at the office or whatever your job is, right? And so try to find something where you also can have a bit of fun, right, day to day. It doesn't mean that every day is gonna be fun, but if you think most days it's productive, I feel like I did something good that day, I see the outcome, I can feel proud of myself when I go home, find that passion, be competitive, and try to do the best short-term and long-term.
Same question, Mike. What's your final word?
Well, first of all, I agree with Marcel. I think you got to find that life is too short. You better have some fun along the way. You work hard, but you got to have some fun, and you do that through relationships and the work that you do. And I'm a big believer in passion. But I would say the advice I probably gave more often than almost anything came from the great UCLA coach John Wooden when he said, "When you're through learning, you're through." And I'm a big believer in lifetime learning. That I think I succeeded. People like Marcelo are succeeding because they're constantly learning through their career. And it doesn't just mean formal education, obviously. It could come through mentorships. It could come through committees that you sit on, projects you work on. But it's a never-ending process. And even in retirement, I still try to learn something every day.
So the moment you think you have it all figured out, the decline begins.
Yes. Absolutely.
You need to have that inquisitive mind, always trying to learn and ask questions and have that appetite.
I want to thank you both for being on the show and sharing your wisdom with our audience. I think we've had a great opportunity to discuss some really important things in the auto finance industry.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
If you have a question or need advice, connect with us by email, leadership@fullerton.edu, or on Instagram @CSUF-CFL. Thank you for tuning in to today's show where we discuss leadership in the automobile finance industry. Thanks to our featured CEO guests, Mike Groff and Marcelo Brudi. Join us each episode of The Leadership Voice where industry executives share their experiences and insights. If you like this episode, please like and subscribe. I'm Jay Barbuto here at the Giles O'Malley Center for Leadership at Cal State Fullerton, and we'll see you next time right here on The Leadership Voice.